our streaming platforms. Let me start this. Let me refresh. Let's just see if we are live yet. All right, we are, so that is fantastic. So good morning, or at least good morning for me. Welcome to our weekly episode of Spredict Live. My name is Fred Endy. I am one of the co-founders of Spredict. We are an evolved predictive gaming platform designed to help shift the narrative when we think of what predictive gaming looks like. And we do that in three ways. We're built around a subscription model. So rather than placing predictions and putting some sort of funds behind them, any users of the Spredict app subscribe for a monthly or season-long access to any of the sports and games that we are offering to compete for prizes. There's always a free-to-play mode. There doesn't have to be any funds involved, but for those who hope to win larger prizes, there are a number of ways to engage via subscription. And so we aim to be the Netflix or Spotify of predictive gaming. We also shift thinking around what predictive gaming can be. In most predictive gaming opportunities, you simply make a selection between one choice or another. Our games use that as a foundation, but have vastly different structures. So whether it's the incorporation of something we like to call our favorite feature, or whether it's an entirely different game mode as exists in our F1 game, Clash of Champions, users of Spredict are faced with some more strategic thinking as they make their selections, some elements of game theory, and an opportunity to use their mind in different ways than current predictive gaming opportunities allow for. And then the third piece that sets us apart, that makes us operate a little bit differently, is our ability to create custom predictive gaming pools. So let's say you are a Web3 project developer, or in the Web 2 space, you want to design a great opportunity for you to make predictions and compete and have fun with friends or family around an upcoming UFC event. You can contact us, we can build out pools for you, and then you have private access to a number of games just for your community. And so our goal, not only to shift thinking around what predictive gaming is, but to utilize it to build community, strengthen engagement, and keep people focused on the value that collaborative and competitive gaming allows for. So every week we run a stream on a variety of different platforms, sometimes joined by guests, other times just with an open forum. And during those streams, we share a little bit about a given event we're following, make some predictions, and then walk you through the ways you can engage in getting acquainted with our portal as we continue to build and grow. So this week we are focused on the UFC Fight Night event that is happening today out at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. So UFC is kind of like main hub for a lot of the sometimes smaller events, right? And so there are a number of bouts we're going to take a look at over the next few minutes. I'm going to show you how you can utilize our DApp and then how you can make your picks. And then I'm going to share with you my thinking for where these four fights, or really three fights, are going to go for the current week. So the first thing that you're going to do, and I will pull up my screen, is you're going to go to our DApp. Now to get there, okay, you're going to go to, let me pull it up. Okay, and you should see it flashing across, there we go. the bottom of our screen. If you go to dap.spredict.io, it will allow you to access our DApp, and I'll pull it up on screen in a second so you can see it. But it's dap.spredict.io. All right, so I'm going to grab that, throw it up on screen. All right, let me do that and find where I put it here. Here we go. All right, let me share my screen. All right, share. The DApp. Perfect. So now what you should be looking at is our DApp on screen. First thing I'm going to call your attention to is the design of the DApp. And on the left-hand side, you'll see a number of elements. These are elements we are all working on, right? Right now, we're taking a look at the first game we've released for UFC called Face Off. This is a pick'em style game between two fighters across a number of fights. Below that is a game we're working on called Finish Style, where you'll have the opportunity to make selections about how a given fight will end. And then you'll also see Formula One and Crypto below. We have a Formula One feature that we are in the process of making available for this Formula One season with our first game, as I shared earlier, called Clash of Champions, which doesn't ask you to pick the winner of the Grand Prix. Instead, it asks you to pick between two options for each of the 10 teams, right? Each of the two drivers for each of the 10 teams who will finish higher. So again, as I've shared and talked a little bit about what sets us apart, the style of our games allows us to operate a little bit differently. And then below that is a crypto feature we're working on. We want Spredict to be accessible to anyone, regardless of whether you are a sports fan or just enjoy predictive gaming. And so our crypto feature will allow for those who maybe want to engage in predictive gaming, but outside of sports, the opportunity to do so. And below that, you'll see where we're creating our rewards tab for those who choose to compete using our Spredict Pass, which will be our monthly and season-long tool for full gaming access. You'll also be able to click on the rewards tab in order to access the opportunities you have, claim rewards from what you've won, etc. On the right-hand side, you'll see where all of our picks will be located for a given series of fights. And then we're building out both a past results feature, which will show you how you've done in previous UFC pools, in this case, or MMA pools, and then a leaderboard. And so as you compete in our Spredict Pass matches, you'll be able to see and track your progress as you earn points towards winning prizes. So I'm going to disconnect just because I want to show you the connection feature. So if you go to connect my wallet, you'll have a number of ways that you can connect your wallet. We are currently live on Abstract Testnet, and we'll be shifting over to Abstract Main in the near future. But what you'll do is click Abstract in this case, right? I'm going to sign to connect, and we'll approve. And now I'm connected and can make my picks. Now we've got previous rounds that are listed up at the top. We're going to scroll down to the 3 fights we're going to be looking at today. Okay, that's listed in Pool A, Pool B, and Pool C. And these are the fights that we'll be exploring. Every week we take a look at what the different options are. We always try to select fights that have some interesting opportunities and some really kind of good odds to discuss and focus on, right? And so we're going to start with the main event for tonight, right? This is Josh Emmett. Emmett is from the U.S., right, who will be taking on Lerone Murphy from the UK. The so both of these guys are old men in the MMA world, right? Emmett is 40 years old, right? Murphy is 33. When you think about the often like the fight cycle for MMA fighters, um, that's like that's like old. I'm 45, right? And a 40-year-old in MMA is like a 60-year-old. Um, both of them uh, both of them have done a fair amount of fighting in their careers, right? And have really experienced quite a bit on the side of kind of like what UFC and MMA has been all about. Emmett is at a bit of a disadvantage when compared to Murphy, just from a physical standpoint. He is a few inches shorter, his reach is a few inches less. Murphy also tends to be stronger in the takedown department, right, than Emmett is. And so you might wonder, what does Emmett really have going for him, right? Why is this kind of the main event for this week? And he did not fight in 2024, but in 2023, he had one of the meanest knockouts of that entire year, fighting Bryce Mitchell, and hit him so hard on the chin that he left Mitchell twitching on the mat. There was this crazy interview with Mitchell afterwards where, I mean, it's Mitchell was significantly knocked out, right? So Emmett is one of the hardest hitting fighters that I have ever seen. Um, I don't I don't know if I'd consider him the most strategic or most patient, right? But I have never seen someone throw a hook the way this guy does. And for me, when I'm making selections and thinking a little bit about my picks for a given week, I like to consider all of the key components, right? All of the things that might play a role in making selections. So the the thing is, because he's such a hard hitting fighter, if he's effective in connecting a number of times with the fighter, significant hits, he can do some real damage. Okay, Emmett's won 3 of his last 5. Uh, I would say, right, a fighter slowing down, right? He's still not someone to be messed with, right? Um, Murphy, who is favored, and the odds here are pretty significant from Vegas in Murphy's favor. He's favored 340. He's yet to lose a fight, right? So yet to. 16 fights, he has never lost. Okay, he had a draw once, right? But never a loss. So when, his record is basically a sea of green, all you see are those green W's. He's quick, hits hard, maybe not as hard on the connection as Emmett, but is really effective with both his arms and his legs. He had this crazy knee knockout of Armakani that you should search for, right? You should search for Murphy versus Armakani and watch that knockout with his knee. He's also really versatile. A lot of times fighters fit into or fall into categories where they tend to try and win fights in one specific way, and so they become a little more readable. Murphy's got ability around submissions, employs takedowns easily, and so really is a fighter who can make moves across the board. So I love Emmett's style and how hard hitting he is, but for me, it's really hard to fade an undefeated fighter, right? Especially one who shows such versatility, right? So it's I always feel drawn towards the U.S. Fighters, right? Because of course, right, I'm an American, but in this case, um, I'm fading Emmett and going with Murphy because for me, skill and record um, have to be what I base my picks on, particularly in a fight like this one. All right, so heading on to our second featherweight battle, okay, and that is our friend Pat Sabatini, right, also from the U.S., who's facing off against Joe Anderson Brito from Brazil. Sabatino was 19-5. Brito is 17-4-1. This is a really interesting match. These two fighters have records that are fairly similar. They're also pretty evenly matched physically. Only difference being a few years of age in Brito's favor, right? So Sabatino, I believe, is 34. Brito is 30 or 31, and Brito has 2 more inches, excuse me, on his reach. Sabatini is a more accurate with those significant strikes. You can tell that he is really the more strategic fighter of the two, with punches and kicks, really working hard to effectively land them. And Brito is a stronger takedown fighter, right? And so you've got a really interesting fight with well physically matched fighters who have some differences in key areas. Sabatini has had a bit of a yo-yo fight schedule. He's won one, he's lost one, he's won one, and he's been KO'd in his last 2 losses, right, in the first round. Not a great sign. I mean, a lot of times for me, even if fighters are kind of going back and forth between wins and losses, if they are going the distance and putting some damage on opponents, that sends a message to me, right? Getting knocked out first round, right, and losing by knockout in 2 consecutive losses is tough, right? The thing is, Sabatini also does know how to submit opponents. The last fight against Pierce, something to watch. He won via submission with this incredible chokehold that he had applied. Brito's a little bit different. His last 5 fight record has been great. It's been 4 wins, 1 loss. He lost to Gomez in September, but prior to that, he hadn't lost in 2 years. And he's a real tough guy. He goes in for the attack, takes no prisoners. His 5 most recent wins been either KO, TKOs, or submissions, right? This is a guy who is looking to cut his opponents down, right? Physical details, as I said, are close to the same. But in those cases, when 2 fighters really bring a lot of the same skills or physically are very similar, I look for the fighter who brings the heat, right? In this case, it's definitely Brito. Sabatini could win, but Brito's the type of fighter who's going to come at you and not stop. And for me, because Sabatini has struggled with hanging on long enough to maybe make his solid punch and kick accuracy like a deal breaker, I think Brito takes this one and carries it with a KO or a submission win. So my pick is in for the Brazilian Joe Anderson Brito. And then lastly, we've got a bantamweight fight. We have Cartavius Romeos, right, from the U.S., record of 9-3. Chang Ho Lee, 10-1, right, out of Korea. These 2 fighters have a lot in common, but it is worth noting that Lee is 4 inches taller. These fighters are both on the smaller side. Lee is only 5'8". I mean, I'm 5'6", so it's not like I have much to say. But Romeos is 5'4". So in the category of size for fighters, Romeos is really quite small, right? Romeos is a real takedown king. Lee is significantly more dominant on his accuracy. Romeos just entered UFC this year. He has a message to send. Every bit of footage I have seen of him fighting, this guy is looking to make a name for himself. He's small. He's very, very fast. Swings hard, but he also swings with reckless abandon. It's kind of like, I think of my kids when they were younger. If they were like fighting, right, it was like just throwing fists, right? And this is what this guy does, right? Lee is just as new, though. The difference being he won his first UFC fight while Romeos lost it. I struggled to find fight of Lee in that first fight against Long. I was just curious about how he fights. So this is a bit of more of a challenging pick for me. Line is basically even on these two. I think it should be a fun fight between two really, really new fighters who have stories to tell and info to share, right? So the line, because the line's even, really a toss-up. I'm going with Lee simply because Lee has a bit of engagement and motivation off of that solid UFC entry win, and Romeos took that loss. So Lee is my pick here. Now, things sometimes happen. You'll see we have a Pool D. Nijekchukuwu versus Bude was the heavyweight fight for this week originally, and then were canceled and they're replaced by Tavares and Mearshart. And if you are a UFC fan, you know those two are like UFC veterans, right? Tavares is like 20-11, Mearshart 37-18, right? These guys are also kind of like old UFC souls, right? So it's not up here on the pool, but just because I can't resist talking about like a veteran fight, I will be going with Mearshart for that fight, only because Mearshart is one of those fighters who, for whatever reason, luck, magic, just this really interesting skill set is on his side, right? So I've got Mearshart for the win on that one. So what I'm going to do, right, is submit my picks. And again, dap.spredict.io is what you will select. I know this fight is not on there, but I'm just going to select Bude just to allow me to put my picks in there. All right, so I'm going to go to validate. I'll get a little window that pops up. I'll approve. And then my picks will load and lock in, right? And so if I want to see what I've picked, I can refresh the screen. Right? And my picks will end up locking in, as you can see. And so that is the simple use of our DAP, right? And we want everybody to be able to check it out and play. So I just put it up again on screen, dap.spredict.io. Give it a try, no cost, all free to play. Enjoy using what we've put together. We look forward to making more of these available and accessible to you. And thanks for joining us for our weekly Spredict Live. We'll see you again soon.